By the summer of 2026, the NBA's elite teams have entered a period of forced liquidation. Front offices that spent years building for a title are suddenly discarding the very players that made them contenders. After years as the face of the franchise, Karl Anthony Towns was shipped out of Minnesota in a trade designed to strip tens of millions from the team's long-term books. Even a championship ring offered no protection in Boston, where the Celtics moved Finals MVP Jaylen Brown to Philadelphia to avoid the escalating penalties of his Supermax extension. These moves represent a calculated retreat. The league's highest spenders are reacting to an economic pressure that now makes traditional roster continuity a structural liability. This chart shows the new financial ceiling defined in the current CBA. Once a team's payroll climbs $17.5 million past the luxury tax line, they hit the second apron. Crossing this line triggers a total freeze on roster management. First, the team loses the mid-level exception, losing their only tool to sign high-quality free agents above the minimum. Teams are also banned from aggregating salaries and trades. They can no longer combine two smaller contracts to match the incoming salary of a star player. Finally, a team's first-round draft pick 7 years in the future is frozen from all trades. If they stay over the line, that pick is automatically moved to the end of the round at 30th overall. 2 years into this experiment, the roster-building prison has redefined the league's economy. An audit of the stakeholders shows exactly how the system is functioning. The NBA's front office designed these rules to stop the wealthiest owners from simply buying their way out of roster mistakes with a massive tax check. This timeline proves the league's plan for competitive balance is working. 6 different teams have won the championship in the last 6 seasons, a level of parity rarely seen in professional sports. But that balance comes with a paradox. The same rules that prevent super teams also punish front offices for drafting and developing their own talent too well. Because salaries rise as players improve, keeping a homegrown championship core together is now mathematically impossible. The league has effectively mandated that success must be followed by a teardown. For team owners, the new CBA provides a shield. It protects them from their own impulse to overspend, while shifting the blame for roster cuts onto the league's restrictions. The severity of the apron penalties gives front offices the perfect excuse to reduce payroll, allowing them to claim their hands are tied by the rules of the agreement. However, this creates a dilemma for smaller markets. To keep a drafted superstar, a team must offer a Supermax deal worth 35% of the total salary cap. Once that single salary is on the books, the remaining budget for the rest of the roster is so thin that even basic depth signings can push the team past the second apron threshold. Owners are now caught in a no-win scenario. They either trade their franchise player before their prime or commit to an inflexible cap sheet that forbids them from making trades to improve. On the surface, the players protected their share. The union maintained their 51% split of basketball-related income and secured the right for players to invest in CBD companies. But beneath the top-line numbers, the NBA's middle class is being squeezed. Players making between $12 and $22 million have seen their market value collapse. Because apron-bound teams cannot aggregate salaries and trades, these mid-tier players are now viewed as untradeable liabilities rather than the foundational pieces of a rotation. The pressure is so high that stars are taking voluntary pay cuts. Jalen Brunson notably left $110 million on the table just to give his team the mathematical room to keep a roster together. While the overall players' pie is safe, the distribution has shifted. Contenders are now forced to fill their benches with unproven rookies and veterans willing to play for the league minimum. Roster construction has settled into a rigid new formula. To stay competitive and avoid the apron, teams are limited to one superstar, one co-star, and a rotating cast of cheap depth. Carrying multiple 35% max contracts has become a massive risk, making the Embiid and Jaylen Brown pairing in Philly the ultimate outlier in a league moving the other direction. Elite depth is no longer a choice of luxury. Under the second apron, having a roster of proven veterans is a mathematical impossibility for the league's top spenders. The CBA achieved its goal of balance by turning the financial cost of a championship into a structural liability. Winning a title now forces a team into a period of immediate, unavoidable decline. As rapid roster turnover becomes the price of doing business, the question remains, will fans stay invested in a league where teams are no longer permitted to keep their identities?